my dear students. Today we are going to discuss the lecture number 5th of the series, and the topic of today's lecture is doctrine of severability or the definition of law. In the previous lecture we have already talked about that the doctrine of eclipse or the basic concept of Article 13 of the Indian Constitution. What is Article 13 of the Indian Constitution? What is the definition of force of law, doctrine of eclipse, or etc. And that kind of you can say in the previous lecture we have already you can say cite some kinds of judicial response which have been passed by the Supreme Court or as well as any other courts like the High Court or the subordinate court. So in this lecture we will discuss the doctrine of severability what is the practice of doctrine of severability, some kind of effect which is declared as unconstitutional, or you can say law declared as unconstitutional, and some powers of legislature when a statute is declared unconstitutional. So now we will start the basic concept of the doctrine of severability. So the doctrine of severability is also known as the doctrine of separability. So the word to the extent of the inconsistency or contravention makes it clear that when some of the provisions of a statute becomes unconstitutional on the account of inconsistency with the fundamental rights, so only to the repugnant provisions of the law in question shall be treated by the court as void and not the whole statute. So it means that if there is any kind of statutory law or statute enacted by the parliament, and that kind of statute, for example, having 100 sections, so in that kind of law or statute, one provisions or one sections of the statute violate or contravene part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, so only that kind of repugnant provisions shall be declared void by the judiciary, not the whole statute. And except that you can say sections or only the particular sections which inconsistent, the whole statute shall be remain in force. So the doctrine of separability or severability means that when some particular provisions of a statute offends or is against a constitutional limitations, but that provisions is separable from the rest of the statute, only that offending provision or only that repugnant provisions will be declared void by the court and not the entire statute, or in another word we can say that the whole statute except the repugnant provision shall be remain in force. So in this doctrine, it is not the whole act which is held invalid for being inconsistent with the part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, like the fundamental right which is given to the citizens of India, or as well as some kind of fundamental right also protect the citizens or as well as non-citizens of India. So it is only those parts are inconsistent which are violative of the fundamental right, only that part shall be declared void by the judiciary or in the judicial review. But just the part which violates the fundamental right is separable according to the doctrine of severability. So if it there that the valid portion is combined with the invalid portion, that it is impossible to separate them, then in such cases the court will leave it and declare the whole act as the void. If you can say there is any kind of you can say problem regarding the separability or separate that kind of statute, or you can say the repugnant provision basically combine the valid provisions. So in this situation the court basically leave that kind of situations, or you can say there is impossible to separate them. So in this case the court will leave it and declare the whole act void. Otherwise only the repugnant provision or only the inconsistent provision of the part third will be declared void. So this process of doing it is known as the doctrine of separability. So these kinds of procedure by the court or as well as by the parliament known as the doctrine of separability. So the practice of doctrine of separability. Practice of doctrine separability. The practice of doctrine has been in, you can say the doctrine of separability has been in practice for a very long time, and it is not a new concept, it is not a new thing in the Indian Constitution. It has been adopted in many countries like the United Kingdom, like the Australian Constitution, like the United States of American Constitution, Malaysia, and so as well in our country, that is in India. So in England, United Kingdom, the doctrine of separability goes back when it had originated in the case of Nordenfeldt versus Maxim Nordenfeldt guns. Nordenfeldt versus Maxim Nordenfeldt, 1894. 1894. In this case, the other countries like the United States of America, where the first case of doctrine of separability was declared in the year 1876. So the basically the doctrine of separability is not a new concept in India, and like any other countries, you can say in England, British Constitution, United Kingdom, the doctrine of basically practice in the America, United States of America, Australia also, and that kind of doctrine developed through the judiciary. And the first case, you can say the United Kingdom, basically the first case in the United Kingdom is Nordenfeldt versus Nordenfeldt Gun and Ammunition Company Limited, 1894. So in this case, the other countries, or you can say like the United States of America, where the first doctrine or the concept of doctrine of severability decided by the judiciary first time in 1876. So in India, the Honorable Supreme Court of India has used this doctrine in the case of, or you can say first time in India, the Supreme Court used the doctrine of severability in A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. The doctrine basically used by the Indian judiciary first time in A.K. Gopalan versus A.K. Gopalan versus Union of India, or you can say State of Madras. State of Madras AIR 1950 Supreme Court 27. Supreme Court 27. In this case, it was held by the court that the preventive detention should be removed from section 14, or you can say that it would be valid, and by removing this will not affect the act. It will remain valid and effective. So in this case, basically section 14 of the Preventive Detention Act contravene or inconsistent with part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. So the judiciary decided that in A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras or Union of India AI 1950, in the Supreme Court clearly held that section 14, or you can say only the portion of section 14 separate by the amendment or separate by the parliamentary amendment by the parliament from the whole statute, and only that kind of section basically separate according to the doctrine of separability, and the whole act shall be remain in force after the removing or after the repeal of section 14 of the Preventive Detention Act. So in another case, the doctrine was further applied in D.S. Nakara. The doctrine of separability further applicable in D.S. Nakara. D.S. Nakara versus Union of India AIR 1983 Supreme Court. 1983 Supreme Court, where it was that the act remained valid and the portion which was not consistent was declared as invalid, and this was because it was easily separated from the valid part. So in this case, the judiciary or the Supreme Court also clarified that only that kind of portion which will inconsistent with part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, or you can say contravene of part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, so only that kind of portion separate or easily separated from the valid statute or from the valid part, and the valid statute or part remain in force after the separated or after severability of you can say some portion which will be inconsistent with any provisions of part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. So another case in this regard is State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara. State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara AIR 1951. AIR 1951 Supreme Court. In this case, it was held that the provisions of Bombay Prohibition Act 1949, which were declared as void, did not affect the validity of the entire act, and therefore there was no necessity for declaring the entire statute is invalid. So in this case, the judiciary also talks about that, or you can say talks about the Bombay Prohibition Act 1949. Bombay Prohibition Act. Bombay Prohibition Act 1949. So in Bombay Prohibition Act 1949, in this act, some provisions basically of this act contravene or inconsistent with the part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. So only that kind of provision which will inconsistent with part 3rd removed or declared void by the judiciary in State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara, and the entire act basically declared valid. Only that kind of provisions declared invalid by the judiciary. So the next case related to the doctrine of severability was even used in Minerva Mill versus Union of India. Minerva Mill versus Union of India. Versus Union of India, AIR 1980, AIR 1980 Supreme Court. In this case, the Supreme Court basically decided that where Section 4 of 55 of the 42nd Amendment 1976 was struck down for being the beyond, or you can say beyond the amending power of the Parliament, and then it had declared the rest of the act is valid. So in this case, in Minerva Mills versus Union of India AIR 90 Supreme Court, in this case only Section 5 of, or you can say clause 55 of the 42nd Amendment 1976 declared struck down, declared void, declared invalid by the Supreme Court, and the rest of the statute or rest of the 42nd Amendment Act 1976 is valid, not the whole act declared void only for that kind of particular section which will inconsistent with Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So then in another case also passed by the Supreme Court is Quixote Holohan. Quixote Holohan versus Jachi Challu. AIR 1993. AIR 1993 Supreme Court. In this case, which is very famously basically known as the defection case, or this case is popularly known as anti-defection case. In this case, paragraph 7 of the 10th schedule or 10th schedule deals regarding the anti-defection law, or the 10th schedule inserted by the amendment in 1985. So in this case, it will find out that by the Supreme Court or by the advocates who have involved in this case, find out that paragraph 7 of the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which was first inserted by the 52nd Amendment Act of Constitution in 1985, was declared as unconstitutional because it had violated the provisions under Article 368 Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution. Or in another word, you can say paragraph 7 of the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which was inserted by 52nd Amendment Act 1985, was declared void, or you can say repealed by the amendment under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. But the whole part was not declared unconstitutional. So the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution also now at present working properly, apart from paragraph 7, which was declared by the Parliament, or you can say declared by the amendment through the Parliament under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, is unconstitutional. But the whole act is in practice. So the rest of the 10th schedule, excluding paragraph 7, was upheld by the Constitution of India. So the doctrine of severability was considered by the Supreme Court of India in the case of RMDC versus Union of India, and the rules regarding severability was laid down in this case. So there are some kind of rules laid down by the judiciary in RMDC versus Union of India. RMDC versus Union of India. In this case, the Supreme Court laid down some rules regarding the doctrine of severability. The first one is the intention of the legislature behind this, or you can say the intention of the legislature behind this is the determine whether the invalid portion of the statute of the act can be easily separated from the valid part or not. So the first rule is that the intention of the legislature is that that kind of portion is easily separated according to the doctrine of severability or not. And the second one, if it happens that the both the valid and invalid part cannot be separated from each other, there are some you can say impossibility to separate from each other, then the invalidity of the portion of the statute will be result is invalid of the whole act. And third one is even if it happens that the invalid portion is separate from the valid portion. So these rules laid down by the Supreme Court in RMDC versus Union of India. First one is that the intention of the legislature should be clear that the portion basically which will inconsistent or contravene part third easily separated or not. And the second one, and if it happens that the both valid and invalid parts cannot be easily separated, or there is a chance, or you can say there is impossibility to separate from each other, then the invalidity of the portion of the statute will result is the whole act declared is invalid only for that kind of situation if there is some kind of impossibility to separate the act. And the next was that if it happens that invalid portion is separated from a valid portion, so that kind of situation decided by the judiciary, or there are number of cases passed by the Supreme Court that the paragraph like paragraph A, paragraph 7, paragraph this separated from the statute, and the whole statute shall remain in force like the previous you can say previously passed by the parliament. So next is effect when a law is declared as unconstitutional. Effect when a law declared unconstitutional. So Article 141 of the Indian Constitution says that law, or you can say says that the Honorable Supreme Court of India is binding on all the code which is within the territory of India. Or the language of Article 141 says that law declared by the judiciary, law declared by the Supreme Court must be bound to the inferior court like the High Court or like the subordinate court under the High Court. For example, once if any law or any statute is declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of India, then it shall be from that date onwards will be binding on all lower courts in India. So the effect of this or you can say the effect of this is that the decision operates as a judgment in rem against all the persons so who may or going to seek relief in any court in India. So no distinction is made where a case where the law declared to be invalid because the lack of the legislative competency, and a case where it is declared invalid on the ground of contravention of fundamental rights. So Article 245 also says that they, you can says that, or as well as lays down that very specifically that the legislative power, whether it is of union or as well as state legislature, is and will always remain subject to other provisions of the Constitution. So next one is the power of legislature when a statute is declared unconstitutional. Power of legislature when a statute declared as unconstitutional. So when a statute is declared unconstitutional by a court of law, then the legislature cannot directly override that kind of decision which is taken and further pronounce the statute to have been valid on the judgment. So if any judgment passed by the Supreme Court or any judgment, any you can say law declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, so the legislature not have any kind of power, or you can say cannot declare directly override that decision which was passed by the Supreme Court on that kind of issue. So it is however so that the competence of the legislature to a new law which is further free from the constitutionality and then provide that anything done under the offending law shall be deemed to have been declared or you can say shall be deemed to have been under the new law and subject of its provisions. So next one is the definition of law. Previously, we have talked about doctrine of severability under Article 13 of the Indian Constitution. Now, we will discuss definition of law or Article 13, Clause 3, Subclause A. Definition of law. Article 13, Clause 3, Subclause A. Article 13 clause 3 subclause A defines the term law or very widely by an inclusive definition. It does not expressly include a law enacted by the legislature, for such as enactment is obviously law. Or you can say it does not mean here that only the law passed by the legislature include in the definition of law under Article 13 clause 3 subclause A, but that kind of you can say term under Article 13 have wide meaning, or you can say under this article the definition of law includes an ordinance because it is made in the exercise of legislative power of the executive, or simply it means that any kind of ordinance passed by the President of India exercise the legislative power, so that kind of ordinance also include in the definition of law. And an order, that is bylaws, rules, regulation and notification having the force of law, because ordinarily they fall in the category of subordinate delegated legislation and are not enacted by the legislature. So it means that all the bylaws which is passed or enacted by the municipalities, by the panchayat, and or you can say in the exercise of delegated legislation, so that kind of bylaws or you can say rules, regulation also include in the definition of law under Article 13 clause 3 subclause A of the Indian Constitution. So generally we can say that the term law not defined anywhere under the Constitution of India except Article 13 clause 3 subclause A of the Indian Constitution, which says that any rules, regulation, notification, customs, usages, ordinances, all these kinds of things included in the definition of law, not only the law passed by the legislature or by the parliament. So, in simple word, you can say law passed by the legislature also include in the definition of law as per Article 13 clause 3. but some kinds of laws passed or in the authority or in the exercise of delegated legislation. Then delegated legislation basically as per Indian Constitution, the Parliament have power to delegate some kind of power to the inferior authority, and in the exercise of delegated legislation, the inferior authority also issued some kind of rules, regulation, notification. So that kind of rules, regulation, notification also come under the definition of law as per Article 13 plus 3 subclause of the Indian Constitution. So the third one is the custom or usage having the force of law, or you can say anything exercised by the society from a very long time. So that kind of customs or usage also included in the definition of law as per Article 13 of the Indian Constitution. But now at present there are number of customs which you can say exercise in the society from a very long time. So that kind of custom or usage at present or presently the Supreme Court declared as unconstitutional. The you can say examples of that kind of custom is the triple talaq. So in Saira Bano versus Union of India 2017, or you can say that kind of case decided by the Supreme Court on 22nd August 2017 and declared that the triple talaq is unconstitutional. Why? Because that kind of triple talaq is the violation of Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. That kind of provisions or that kind of articles deals regarding a right to equality or equal protection of law or equality before law. Or the Supreme Court also says that the triple talaq is not according to the Quranic law. So in this judgment, the Supreme Court clearly decided that the instant triple divorce is unconstitutional because it is not included in the definition or in the term of law according to Article 13 clause 3 subclause A of the Indian Constitution. So the next one is applicability of Article 13. Applicability of Article 13 of Indian Constitution. What is the procedure for you can say applicable of Article 13 as per under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution? Because Article 13 of the Indian Constitution or Article 13 of the Indian 13 clause 2 of the Indian Constitution clearly says that the state shall not have, or you can say state shall not have power to enact any kind of law which contravene or inconsistent in part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. Or Article 368 of the Indian Constitution says that the Parliament have power to amend any kind of provisions of the Indian Constitution. So there is a controversy between Article 13 and 368 of the Indian Constitution. Article 13 says that you can't touch me, or you cannot touch fundamental right, you cannot touch part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. But Article 368 says that I can touch, I can amend each and every provisions of the Indian Constitution. So now we will discuss the applicability of Article 13 to a law for amending of the Indian Constitution. So the elementary question in controversy has been whether fundamental rights are amendable so as to take away the basic rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Another controversy deals with the you can say extent, scope and authority of Parliament to amend the Constitution. So the answer has been given by the Supreme Court of both the questions, or in simple word you can say there are two questions regarding the applicability of Article 13 to a law for amendment of the Constitution. So like both the questions decided by the judiciary, by the Supreme Court from time to time, sometimes under the immense pressure, and can be understood in the light of the following cases. So the first one is this question raised, or you can say this question means the question whether the law under Article 13 is applicable or comes under the definition of Article 368 or a part of Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. So this question came very first time in Shankri Prasad versus Union of India. Prasad versus Union of India, AIR 1951, AIR 1951 Supreme Court. In this case, the validity of the first Constitutional Amendment Act to the Constitution was challenged on the ground that it purported, or you can say it abridges or contravene fundamental right under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So in this case, the Supreme Court held that the power to amend the Constitution, including fundamental rights, is contained Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. Or in another word, we can say that Article 368, the Parliament have power to amend each and every provisions under Part 3 of, or including Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So an amendment is not a law within the meaning of Article 13 Clause 2. So Article 13 Clause 2 states that the state shall not make law which takes away or abridges Part 3 of the Indian Constitution or in contravention of Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So an amendment is valid even if it abridges any fundamental right. So as per Shankri Prasad, the Supreme Court held that the Parliament have power to amend any kind of provisions of the Constitution, including Part 3 of the Constitution, or you can say the Supreme Court further held that an amendment is valid even if it abridges any fundamental right of the Indian Constitution. So in another case, for second time, this question again raised before the Supreme Court in Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan. Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan. Rajasthan, AIR 1965 Supreme Court. AIR 1965 Supreme Court. In this case, the validity of the 17th Constitutional Amendment Act 1964 was challenged on the ground that one of the act inserted by the amendment in the 9th schedule affected the petitioner on the basis that the amendment fell within the purview of Article 368 and the requirements in the proviso to Article 368 had not been complied with. So the Supreme Court approved the judgment in Shankri Prasad case and held that Article 13 Clause 2, the case was rightly decided and amendment include the amendment in all provisions of the Constitution. So in Sajjan Singh case, basically in simply we can say that in Sajjan Singh case, the Supreme Court also upheld the decision passed in the Shankri Prasad versus Union of India. So the third time, or the very controversial case, this question again raised before the Supreme Court in IC Golaknath versus Union versus State of Punjab. IC Golaknath State of Punjab. State of Punjab, AIR 1967 Supreme Court. AIR 1967 Supreme Court. In this case, the Supreme Court prospectively overruled its previous judgment like the Shankri Prasad or the Sajjan Singh. Or in this case, the Supreme Court overruled its own judgment, which will passed in Shankari Prasad or Sajjan Singh case, and held that Parliament had no power to amend Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. So, as per the Golaknath case, there are certain kind of limitations imposed on the Parliament in the exercise of power under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. Means that in this case, the Supreme Court clearly held that the Parliament have not, or you can say the Parliament had no power to amend Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution or amend fundamental right which is incorporated in Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, so as to average or take away any fundamental right. It also added Article 368 merely lays down the procedure for the purpose of amendment. Further, the court said that the amendment is law under Article 13 Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution. If it violates any fundamental right, it may be declared void. So the Golaknath case create a lot of difficulties, and as a result the Parliament enacted 24th Constitutional Amendment 1971, whereby it changed the old hearing of Article 368 or a procedure for amendment of the Constitution to the new headings, power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution and procedure thereof. So after this amendment, the next or very important or the landmark judgment is Keshwananda Bharati. Keshwananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, AIR 1973, AIR 1973, Supreme Court. So in this case, one of the various questions raised in this case was extended to the power of the Parliament to amend under Article 368, and a 13 judges constitutional bench was formulated under the Chief Justice of Sikri, and in order to evaluate the intrinsics of, or you can say difficulties of the Golaknath case. So the Supreme Court overruled its previous judgment in Golaknath case and held that even before the 24th Constitutional Amendment contained powers as well as procedure for the amendment. So the majority of the Keshwananda Bharati case held that there are inherent limitations on the amending power of the Parliament under Article 368 does not confer power so as to destroy the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. So in Keshwananda Bharati case, the Supreme Court clearly decided that the Parliament not have unlimited power to amend the Constitution, including fundamental rights, but, or you can say, the Parliament had power to amend under Article 368 of each and every provision of the Constitution, including Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, but the basic structure of the Indian Constitution cannot be violated by the Parliament, or the basic structure basically not touched by Parliament as per Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. So that is the you can say very long discussion of a doctrine of severability or the definition of law under Article 368, or we had also cited some kinds of judgment of the Supreme Court passed by the you can say judiciary passed by the Supreme Court. If that kind of judgment, or you can say we have some learned regarding the provisions related to law, etc. So there is any kind of confusion, so please let me know on the Google Meet class. Thank you.